Did any of you wake up and say, I want to get into contractual disputes as a career? Okay, you've now had a couple of years of university and hopefully doing engineering in a format that you enjoy and that gives you pleasure and that you can enjoy life as Renata was talking about it, and then things go wrong. And generally when you've got to go and deal with disputes of some description, this becomes your after-hours entertainment that you very often don't get paid for. So I'd like to talk about those things because by and large they're avoidable. And a lot of that is when it goes wrong, you don't sleep, you work after hours, you don't concentrate because you're not too sure, is this or that going to happen, how's it going to happen? It's going to cost money, one way or the other. Who's going to pay? And if you're the professional and maybe you were the cause of it, it becomes a bit difficult to explain to your bosses. It doesn't matter if you're that size or that size practice. And are you going to deliver that project on time? And if things go wrong, and as Mr. Pather just said, you get work from doing good work, it becomes your reputation that's at stake. So we need to look at those sort of things. And a lot of these problems start right at the beginning when a project is conceived and the sponsors of that project need to decide what are they going to do. And then with a bit of experience, and this is maybe where the youth and the older experienced people, the guys who change their hair color come into play, you look at a project and you say, fantastic, this is a wonderful project that I can do. I'm now an engineer, I've had some experience. And you get one of these fuddy-duddies like me who says, have you looked at that? Have you considered that? Because those are the things that could become a problem. Do we want to live with problems? Probably not. So it becomes an attitude of mind that we'd like to try and not to get into a scenario where we get into difficulties. We need to communicate and we need to have a policy as a company that we are proactive to try and prevent those sort of things. If you look at how a project is conceived, whoever the client is has got this wonderful dream of what this project is going to be. It may be a good idea, it may not be a good idea, and this is something that needs to be tested, because sometimes clients rush into something, appoint consultants and say, that's not actually what we wanted to do, or the circumstances have changed. So it becomes very important that you identify what this potential project is, how you're going to design it, how you're going to construct it, how is it going to be used throughout its life cycle? Is technology going to change this? Are you building something that by the time it's finished, it's redundant? If you look at our computer technology, by the time the new iPhone's released, it's actually outdated, because the next version's almost ready to be launched. So what business are you in? You are consultants, yes, we understand that. We also understand the role of consultants is changing. What technology is appropriate for this project? How is this work going to be carried out? How is this going to change if we're looking at the expanded public works program and emerging contractors? As a consultant and as a designer, does that change the work that you do and how you do it, and how you document it, how you go to tender, how you manage the execution of that? What are the political risks in a project like that? Are there any statutory requirements that are unique? Have you considered how much time it takes to get statutory approvals? Anybody had to get a water use license recently? How many years? Whatever we've assumed, are those assumptions, are they valid? Are they correct? The people who dream up the project should not necessarily be the people who execute it, because you get so much locked into what you think is wonderful without seeing the wood for the trees. So it may be important that others can look at what you're doing. And you've had this idea that you're going to build this, and then somebody says, but we can't build it there. We've got to do other things first. And if you cast your mind back 10 years ago, this little-known entity known as Gautrain had tons of enabling projects, because you had to go and buy properties where the railway lines were going to go. You had to go and have places where you could build the ventilation shafts. You had to reroute a lot of roads to go and get the trains there. Trains don't go around corners too well. Trains don't go up and down too well. So you had to do a whole lot of things before you even started on the Gautrain project. That takes time, it costs money, it's got to be designed. Have you found the most effective construction solution? Is it what we've always done? Is it suitable to go and break it into little parts that can be done by smaller contractors or emerging contractors? Or do we have to look at a completely different solution? A standard form contract is also a consideration. It could be a design and build option. It could be this way the standard form we usually build, that the design team designs it, we find a contract and he signs a contract. There are a whole lot of these things. They all work, and they all have their advantages under certain circumstances or disadvantages. How realistic is the program? How realistic is the budget? And at the beginning of a project, most of us sort of look at this and say, 18 months maximum, so much money. And then we start working on it, and it's not 18 months, and it's not what we thought it was. But unfortunately, everybody remembers that number that you said, I can do it for 10 million. And we now explain to your client that it's now 18 million. Where has that come from? So these things happen, and then of course that one, which I don't think I need to repeat, major cause of dispute, but we're not going to talk about that, except to say, to go and save money on professional fees generally causes problems that you get an inferior engineering or building project. Please don't allow yourself to be screwed into fees that you can't do the work. You're committing professional suicide, and nobody's going to win. There is a certain amount of money you need to do a job as a consultant, and you cannot do it for less. So don't allow that to happen to you. Part of that is if you get into the situation where you're not getting what you should be getting paid, is that those things suffer. You won't go and produce the documentation that is required. You won't produce it to the standard that is required. And particularly if you're now looking, for instance, to an emerging contractor, and you give him a drawing that says, do that, and no further information, he hasn't got a clue what to do. So if you're dealing with emerging contractors, you probably have to do more work, not less work, to go and provide that sort of information, and you will have to spend more time on site to go and guide them. So these things all come with little but-ifs. Projects need to be considered. Disputes or the possibility of a dispute must be considered. And if possible, by looking at it carefully, can you avoid things going wrong? Are we doing the right sort of project at the right time in the right place? Are we realistic about what projects are all about, time, money, and quality? Have we understood the scope? And I'm afraid my architectural colleagues usually are naughtier than you guys. We've got this, I'll sort it out as the job progresses. We don't actually want that.